Welcome into the Sportsball Grinder here, Friday edition for you this spring. It's the Spring Forward Sports Weekend. We're going to talk a little NFL news, little NCAA football news. There is a little bit of that out there. We'll get a lot of basketball as we're rounding into conference tournament season, and we'll dash it off with a little bit of NASCAR. But first off, thanks for joining us here, the Sports Podcast for the casual sports fans by the casual sports fans. Appreciate you joining us. Go ahead and subscribe, whether you're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Apple Music, iHeartRadio. We appreciate the support. And you can follow the show on Facebook. Just search for Sports Ball Grinder. You'll get announcements about upcoming show related news that way. Here to break all that stuff down with me, though, is the man with all the numbers, the king of the danger zone himself, one half of the Gridiron Breakdown's founding membership. It's Mr. Allen. What's going on, brother?
How much, Jay? It's been far too long since we've done this, and I'm excited to kick around some topics once again.
Indeed, indeed. Lots of fun stuff to get into. So let's start with some of this NFL news. Deebo Samuel traded to the Commanders about a week ago now. I personally think it's a great move. He obviously wanted out of San Francisco. San Francisco is in a bit of fire sale mode, I think, for cap reasons and stuff. And it gives the Commanders another way to try to stave off the old sophomore slump as they way overachieved this year, landing in the NFC title game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great move as far as the Commanders go. They added a great number two option for that offense to give them some pop opposite of Terry McLaurin. You know, Zach Ertz was their second leading receiver as far as receptions last year. I know he's set to be a free agent. I know they have the cap space, so I don't know why they wouldn't re-sign him. But their next best wide receiver was Zacchaeus. He only had 506 yards and 3 touchdowns in 17 games. So they really needed to give Daniels some help, like you said, to avoid that sophomore slump. So for the Washington, it's an A plus. It is a home run. They added a guy who's, a good number two option. On the flip side, though, the Niners, at least they were good to honor Samuel's trade request. I'm sure they're not happy only getting a fifth round, but let's be honest. This is a 29-year-old wide receiver on a contract year who has a lot of wear and tear on that body.
Yes, he does. Mm-hmm. That's what I worry about only is that he's changing climates, going all the way to the East Coast. It's a lot colder where the Commanders play for half the year. And, Cliff Kingsbury is going to use him like Kyle Shanahan did. He's going to get, carries. He's going to move him around, jet sweeps, a lot of throws over the middle, stuff like that. Can he stay healthy the whole time? That's going to be big key for him. But, guys going into contract years, they miraculously get real healthy all of a sudden. So, we'll see what Deebo pulls out. But I like the move. I think it makes a ton of sense. And it makes sense for both parties. I'm with you. I'm surprised they didn't get more than a fifth out of it. But, for San Francisco, that they unload that. They've already paid Ayuk. There's rumors they're going to try to trade him. We'll see how that goes. Speaking of receivers up in age that are on the block, DK Metcalf, all 27 years old of him for the Seattle Seahawks, is on the trade block. They are listening to phone calls for that. 3 of his years, he's been just under 1,000 yards. The other, he's been well over 1,000 yards. Real big guy, super freak athlete, but 27 is 27 in a wide receiver body. I still think he's got market out there, but I don't know. What do you think his asking price is going to be?
Well, they've said what it is, and it's quite hefty. It is at least one first round pick, depending on where it is, and preferably a young wide receiver to go with it. There will be no lack of suitors, though. Metcalf, like you said, he is a big, explosive, powerful guy. He can make those big plays. I think there'll probably be 5 or 6 teams that'll get in on this action. Now, let's be honest, though. 27 contract year, and he's going to probably want $30 million a year.
He's going some dough. Yeah.
So, but I think they're going to look AFC first because they would love to not have to play him if at all possible. I think if you're looking in the AFC, I think you start with New England. Young quarterback, cheap contract. They have loads of cap room. I think they have like $130 million
Something
in
like
cap
that.
room.
Yeah, now that the cap's gone up so high, yeah.
And that's a big need for them. Now, here's the problem, though. They're not going to give up that top 5 pick. So can they make some sort of package deal that equates to that. I don't know. Another team, um, it would be tricky, but this would be the move, would be the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Buffalo needs a number one, but they don't have the cap space. Now, rumor is they're going to try to restructure Josh Allen, and they're going to try to restructure um, one of the defenders. It's slipping my mind right now.
Von
They're
Miller,
going to try
maybe?
to they're going to try to free up some cap space.
Hmm.
Now, can they do it? Another team, Pittsburgh, has been named in what every wide receiver deal for the last 2 years.
I think forever, yes.
Um, Also, another place is the Chargers. They need a number one receiver. They got the cap space. Uh, would he necessarily be a cultural fit there? Probably not. There are two wild cards though, and the first one everybody's going to groan: the Kansas City Chiefs.
Ooh.
It will
Oh,
be a 1 year
don't
rental.
don't give them that.
It would be a 1 year rental, but their window is closing.
Mm.
They're getting kind of old. They really need to reset. They're lacking receivers. Um, but yeah, if that happened, I think every AFC GM is heading straight for the liquor cabinet.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
we can't be having that. That's not that's not
and the
good.
other team, I'm not sure if they can make it work, would be the Green Bay Packers. They need a proper number one receiver. They could package that late first round pick with one of their young receivers and probably get it done. Now, the question is, can they come to a contract deal with him? Do they have the space? They have some space, but I don't know if they have a $30 million wide receiver space. But that is going to be interesting. I mean, that's a big, you know, if he were to be a free agent, which more or less he is right now, he would be the
Mhm.
number one free agent on the market next week when it opens.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree. If they were just to cut him loose, Speaking of big free agents in the market, there's a ton of them out there, but Joey Bosa is free from the Chargers now, and Devontae Adams back on the market now, an older wide receiver. He's been playing a few more years than DK, but far more productive and in the right place. He had a good year with Las Vegas. Then this year, it obviously wasn't going anywhere. He got shipped off to the Jets because he wanted out of that mess. That didn't turn into anything either. But I mean, he's a legend in Green Bay, really built his career there. And I think he's a guy looking for a ring, honestly, more than he is the dough, because I think he's got the money and seems to be a pretty smart dude. So talk about Devontae Adams, and then we'll go over to Bosa and what his market might look like.
Adams, I mean, it's going to be 100 dependent on how much money he wants. Like you
Yeah.
said, is he looking for the money or is he looking for the ring? If he's looking for the ring, I think there are plenty of places, Kansas City, Green Bay, maybe even a place like Philadelphia to throw him in with all those great receivers they have, if he's willing to take a team friendly deal. Now, if he wants the money, he's going to end up on a trash team and make a lot of money and not have good stats. But here's the thing. I think at this stage in his career, Adams isn't an alpha dog, a 1A. I think you could pencil him in as a 1B at this point. Like, he's not a number two guy. He's a little above that. So he could work, especially like I would love to see him personally back in Matt LaFleur's offense. The way they run the ball, they scheme guys open. To have that guy on 3rd and 8 you could go to, or a guy who could be around at least for a playoff run, I think it'd be worth kicking the tires on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is worth it in the right situation. I hate to mention it again, but the Chiefs, the Bills need to take a look at that. They need to talk about that. Um, there's some other teams too that might. Washington's still got a lot of cap space. He might be interested. Young quarterback. We'll see. There's some other teams as well, but that's one I would go. I'll give you a wild card for Devontae Adams. The Jacksonville Jaguars, that need a real vet in the room to go along with Trevor if they can do it. And they've got a little bit of cap space, so we'll see. So they got to get
The
somebody to do
regression, I'm
something.
just going to touch on this. The regression on Lawrence last year was just awful. You
Yeah.
thought he had taken that step forward, but it appears to be no growth. It looks like Jacksonville may be due for another reset.
Well, I think they're in reset with Liam Cohen. They've now moved Trent Baalke out. They've got a really young, fresh face GM. And it's almost like the movie Draft Day come to life. So we'll see how that plays out. Joey Bosa is the last one I want to talk about today. Here, look, 5-time Pro Bowler. I think the guy's got a lot of juice left in him. There's teams that need pass rush help or want to do complementary pass rush help. You think of Detroit, Buffalo, we've already mentioned. There's other contending teams. The Houston Texans could use some pass rush. Green Bay could use a pass rusher. There's Minnesota can always beef up. They're great on defense, but they could use a pass rusher. Who can't use another rusher, especially if you've got one on the other end, and now you create two problems up front. You keep yourself from having to get exotic with blitzes and stuff when the league is all about dinking and dunking underneath anyway. You got to kill the quarterback in less than a second and a half.
Well, I mean, it's a risk reward. I mean, your first question is how much money does Bosa want?
Hmm.
That's the first thing. The second thing is he's missed 23 games in the last 3 years, and only has 14 sacks over that time period. So the last 3 years have been not good, not productive. Um, but I do think you're right. I think there is a place for him, especially as like a third down pass rush specialist. If you're not asking him to do everything, you can probably mitigate some of those health concerns if he's maybe having to only be on the field, 15, 20 plays a game max. Um, I think likely landing spots. I think Detroit is probably number one. They want to put him opposite of Hutchinson. They obviously had the health and depth issues, so he can mitigate that. Some other places is Washington. The Valor was their leading sack getter, and I think he only had 10 and a half sacks. So they need some pop there on the pass rush. Another unlikely landing place, which I wrote this and then I saw other news that leads me to think that's not true. But so the Niners playing with his brother. Now the problem is they just released Javon Hargrove on my way home. Um,
Interesting.
that that was a cap move.
Hmm.
I think that saves them like $25 million in cap space. Now,
Yeah, that does help them. So they're obviously getting ready to do something if they're starting to cut
I
dudes
got a
loose.
feeling they're
So
about to sign Purdy to an extension that'll be like the worst extension in the history of mankind.
we'll circle back to that when it comes up, but I don't entirely disagree with you there. I think that might not be the move, but we'll see. We'll see. Real quick in NCAA football news, the ACC survives for now with an extended and reworked television deal with ESPN. The option picked up through 2036. That's optimistic. But here's the way it's done, and this is what you're the numbers guy, so I need you to explain this to me like I'm five. 60% of the media payout is going to be based on a ratings model. So depending on how many people watch your games, you will get X number of dollars factored out, and then the other 40% is split evenly amongst the entire league. Um, wow, what an interesting way of doing media rights payout.
We do that in the SEC.
I don't think so. I don't think anybody will sign off
Yeah, I
on
mean,
it.
let's be honest. That was solely put in there to keep Clemson and Florida State from bolting.
Yeah.
The only reason that is the Clemson FSU rider.
Hmm.
Um, because let's be honest, your biggest audiences are going to be football games. Um, Basketball brings in the numbers, but not in the same way college football does.
No.
Um, and who's tuning in to watch, Virginia versus Louisville? Nobody.
Virginia and Louisville fans, but not wide audience. You're right. Yes.
So we'll see how this plays out. This goes to a bigger thing. I think media deals have gotten so just out of control. I know that's how they make their money, but I think at some point they're going to stop um, having a positive return on your investment. I think you're paying so much money that you're just not going to make any money and you're going to walk away from some of these deals.
I think some of these things are about to get right sized, as they like to say. I like to listen to a show called The Town with Matt Bellany, not a subscriber or an advertiser on this show, but I do recommend his stuff because he talks a lot about Hollywood and about television deals and stuff. And he often remarks, and people say like, "Oh, these numbers are ridiculous." He said, "Live sports still sells everywhere." He said it's the only thing keeping certain networks alive. And he said it, and now that the streamers are getting involved in it, it's just the numbers just keep going up. So it's just I'm with you that there's got to be a bubble to it. What's wild is that to get out of the ACC to buy out now would cost you a cool $570 million plus. But for every year of the deal till 2030, it drops 18 million. And then after that, it drops $75 million per year, which just leads me to believe that maybe by 2031, Clemson and FSU will have enough, couch cash to get out if they want to. Not that it would stop them, but I mean, that's a worse buyout than most Auburn coaches get. Like, that's insane.
Well, I mean, you're giving them, the pot sweetener there. There got
Hmm.
to be the stick to the carrot, so to speak.
Yeah. We'll see if how much longer this lasts, but it was an interesting news. Otherwise, not a lot going on with college football other than there are no spring games, but who cares about that anyway? All right, it's time for a conference season winding down in college basketball. We're heading into the really the last weekend of games. Some conference tournaments have already started in the mid majors. Some games of the weekend. I kind of want to lightning round through these and just I got questions I want to throw you just to see where we are on some of this. And all of these will impact seeding in some way, except for this first one, because I have to ask, what the heck happened to Kentucky? This is not the Kentucky your dad knew. All right, Kentucky is going to make the tournament, but they're on the road at Mizzou, and can the injured Wildcats spark enough offense to get past a real pesky Mizzou team this weekend?
No, they cannot. You know, Kentucky's been fighting injuries for sure. I mean, I think the thing that happened in Kentucky is the thing that's happening to some of your blue bloods in college football.
Mm,
NIL has leveled the playing field, um, especially in basketball, where you only need what, maybe two or three really key guys, and you could
yeah.
spark a run. So I think you're seeing the talent being spread out throughout college basketball, and Kentucky doesn't have a monopoly on it. Now, let's be honest, it's a coach's first year, so you got
Hmm.
to give him that, and he's got to transition from Calipari's one and done model to something maybe more sustainable. But they're definitely limping into the conference tournament. The fact that they're still ranked uh, is a little mind boggling. I mean, I think they're still ranked 19th. I think they're ahead of
Yeah.
Missouri.
Yeah, most of the SEC is ranked at one time or another. I mean, as much as the rankings even matter anymore, but yeah, I feel like a lot of, in particular basketball rankings, it's reputation that keeps teams in the top 25 over a lot of ways. I think people are still stunned that Kentucky's not 24-3 right now or something like that, and that they've lost a lot of games, and we'll see how far they can get in the tournament. I'm with you. I don't trust them. I really don't. So we'll see if they can get past. Mizzou's messy at home. They can really mess you up. So I don't know about that one. This is a team that they might have a shot at getting one of these one seeds, but Ole Miss has already taken down a couple of big pelts. They're on the road at Florida this weekend. Florida's the team that seems to be locked in as a two seed in the tournament. But there's a chance they could get a one if they can go on a run, win the SEC postseason tournament, maybe. But Ole Miss took down Tennessee and Alabama this year. Is Florida next?
I don't think so. I, I think Ole Miss shot their shot this week. They took down Tennessee as a huge win. Um, I'm sure one side of the Manning family was happy. Um, but Ole Miss, they can give people problems, but they also have games where they just don't show up. They're very inconsistent. I think going on the road, and I think I think Florida will end up getting a one seed. I
Okay.
think they have beaten enough teams. I mean, they beat Auburn on the road, they beat Alabama on the road. They have some other big wins there. I think if they beat Ole Miss and then win a couple of games in the conference tournament, I think they're a good bet for that last one seed. Because let's be honest, Duke, Houston, and Auburn are all locked in as ones. There are a handful of teams fighting for that last one, and I would give Florida better than a puncher's chance at it.
Yeah, one of those teams that seems to have locked it now but could lose it is Tennessee. And we're going to talk about them next because they just lost, a tough game with Ole Miss. They're back home. They bring in South Carolina. Don't get fooled by South Carolina's record. That's a good basketball team, and it's a mean basketball team, and they got nothing to lose at all. Do the Gamecocks go shoot the shot? Does it matter? Tennessee rebound this weekend?
I do think Tennessee will rebound. Now, this game may not have more than 35 points scored on either side.
Yeah, right.
There may
Yeah.
be like 75 fouls.
Yeah. Tennessee's idea of basketball is we're going to dial the clock back 74 years and we're going to beat the stew out of you and just dare you to beat us from the line.
And South Carolina's probably okay with that.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Um,
fine. They don't want to get into a shooting match with like up and down the court. Like that's not what Tennessee does. So wow, Ole Miss beat them, and
but I mean,
that's yeah.
I've seen Tennessee lock down some good teams this year.
Oh yeah,
I mean, they held Florida to what, like 44 points in that game.
yeah. They
So,
can play some real just slow grind you in the dirt basketball.
so I think they'll be fine. I think it'll be a tough matchup, but I think they need to watch out to keep everybody healthy heading into the conference tourney next week.
Yes, yes, they do. That's not going to be an easy road no matter what, though they're going to get a probably going to get a double bye out of it either way. But, still it's a long season and now the wear and tear weighs in. But it's a good thing there's a shot clock because otherwise every Tennessee game would be 19-7 or something like that. It'd be like your youth league rec games. Alabama on the road at Auburn. Bama's had a couple of bumps in the road here since losing to Auburn. Auburn did lose a game on the road at Texas A&M this week. They seem to rest a lot of dudes, so take it for what you will. But Auburn really kept Alabama at bay the whole time, playing them in Coleman Coliseum the last time. Bama got on a run in the second half, got it close, and then Auburn just shot the lights out on them. Can Mark Sears and Bama get enough help to go and knock off the number one Tigers?
Not if they rebound like they did last night.
Well, that's true. That wasn't real good. That was ugly. So,
I mean, I think that Florida may want to sign that guy up to play linebacker. Here's the thing: Alabama can beat anybody when their shots are falling,
mm,
but their shots hadn't been falling in the last couple of games. They've been killing themselves at the free throw line. Like, how can you make so many 3 pointers, but you can't shoot a free throw? Like, I don't understand that.
mhm.
Um, I think it'll be an entertaining game. The question is, Alabama has to get Brom in foul trouble early and put his butt on the bench.
Yeah.
If he is allowed in that game, he will dominate them like he did in the first matchup. Alabama doesn't have anybody who can match up with him inside. Uh, we're still missing that kind of big guy in the middle. That was the problem last year. That seems to be the problem this year. And like last night, it just seems like we were asking Mark Sears to do it all. And he needs some help. Like
Yeah. When his shots
he,
fall, he's got a pretty stroke, but you're right. He's got to have some help. Got to have guys like
but
Grant Nelson get healthy.
Alabama can win this game. Will they win it? I don't think so. I think playing on the road is going to be tough. But it all depends on how Auburn approaches the game. I mean, Auburn doesn't need to win this game. They're the one seed in the conference tournament. They're probably locked into a one seed, if not the number one overall one seed. So this game's not important to them. It is important to Alabama. Alabama needs it to reclaim a little bit of that momentum. I
Hmm.
think going into the conference tournament, losing 3 straight games would be a bad look. Not just a bad look. I think it really kills kind of the motivation of your team. Uh, Nate Oates has got to get it righted real fast. But, last year they kind of slumped into the conference tournament and came out of nowhere in the NCAA tournament. And like we say all the time, regular season doesn't matter. It's about those 6 games in March.
Now you lay the bricks for what you need, but it's those 6 games in March that matter if you're going to make a real run. You're right. Should be an entertaining game, no doubt. Houston, another looking like going to be a number one overall seed, locked in. They're on the road at Baylor. Not a great Baylor team. They just got to overcome the slump in Waco. I think they can. Houston hit a little bit of a dive midseason, but they've corrected it. That's a team I don't think anybody wants a part of in the tournament. They're going to be a problem for people.
No, they play hard basketball. Kelvin Sampson always has tough, hard nosed teams, and this team is no different. I think they'll take care of Baylor and go into the conference tournament and probably breeze through that for the most part. I mean, Iowa State could be a road bump there, maybe. They've been kind of inconsistent here the last 5 or 6 games. But Houston is playing maybe the best basketball of anybody outside of Auburn or Duke.
Yeah, yeah, they're really, really good. If you haven't watched them, you're in for a treat to catch them. I'm going to go to a Sunday game real quick. We'll come back for the last Saturday game. Michigan is taking Michigan State on in East Lansing. Michigan State's already locked up the regular season Big Ten championship. They pretty well seem to be locked in as one of the 2 seeds in the tournament. So they're on the bubble of a one, but it would take a lot of stuff for them to get one. How motivated are they to do this? I mean, does it matter to them? I think it probably does, but this Michigan team's pretty good.
This Michigan team is good. I mean, I feel like Tom Izzo generally has his teams ready to play regardless of circumstances.
Mm.
Um, I think Michigan State probably just has too much firepower for Michigan. Um, it is college basketball and odd things happen. Um, would it be the most earth shattering thing? No. But I think Michigan State will take care of business on Sunday.
They should. And then the last one, the one game day is going to be at, the big one, down here in Carolina where I am, Duke's on the road, meaning literally across the road to take on Chapel Hill, North Carolina. UNC on the bubble. They're like the first four out right now. Is an upset win here against Duke enough, or are they going to have to do that and make a little bit of a run in that ACC tournament to get in the tourney? Knowing they've got the brand and all that stuff.
They win this game, I think they're in. It would be a big enough win uh, to catapult them, especially with the name on the front of the jersey.
Hmm.
Uh, if it comes down to two teams of equal value, the committee's taking it UNC. It's all about money. It's all about eyeballs. They bring it. But can they beat Duke? Can they beat Cooper Flag? Because that kid can ball.
Dude,
I
that
mean, he is
that is
for
amazing.
real.
Yeah, and he's talking about running it back, coming back another. This is another thing NIL has brought us. I did see a good joke on the social medias this week where the rumor was like he doesn't want to play for Charlotte or wants to play for Washington, and some Charlotte fan tweeted that or whatever and said, "Hey, good news, we're gonna be terrible next year. We can do this all day." So so it may not matter, but yeah, Cooper Flag is a problem, and I don't think North Carolina's got much. But it's not just him too. They've got other guys that really play well. But when he's hot, man, it's like Broome at Auburn. When he's going, forget it. Everybody else game gets elevated too. So that's the NCAA basketball. A lot of good games, like we say. We're rounding in. Next week we'll have conference tournaments. We'll talk about those. I'm one of those that I don't even know if those matter that much. Especially for the Big Ten and the SEC this year. They're not going to matter much for the ACC either. I don't think where it happens is you get bid stealers, coming out of those mid majors. So you got the number one team all year, and then all of a sudden they lose their conference tournament. They're out. They're not going to get, the Western Athletic Conference not going to get more than one team in maybe. So that's the fun part of conference tournament season to me.
Well, and every now and then you get one of those bid stealers in the big ones.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, there have
exactly.
been a
Just
few years some
mhm.
8, 9, and 10 seeds have won the SEC, and it's been like, where did this happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't
Yeah.
think that's happening this year.
No, man, you know what though? I wouldn't be surprised. I would say that like the 7 and 8 seed in the SEC, you plop them in another league, they might be the 2 seed, in that league, the way it's gone this year.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss is able to make a run in the SEC tournament, but it all depends on matchups. Like,
Yeah,
where does the draw end up?
they might get through the first one. I think their second, the way it looks now, like they're going to draw like Auburn or Tennessee second shot, and it's like okay, forget it. So they might get 2 games out, but we'll see. Beard's done a great job there, no doubt. And look, the SEC basketball conference is loaded with coaches and players. It's almost like the football conference likes to think it is, but hasn't been for a long time. So the basketball conference is pretty deep. It's a lot of good teams. So we'll see how it goes. Last thing on the docket here, NASCAR is in Phoenix this week. Not exactly the favorite track of any driver. It's the 1 mile dog-legged oval, if you will. You can get up to about 132 at best, but man, the pavement puts hell on the tires, puts a lot of stress on the teams, and the way stage racing is going this year, Alan, it's wild. No winning driver in the first 3 races has led more than 20 laps. Christopher Bell's won 2 in a row. He snuck one at the very end of a race 2 weeks ago. He's going for 3 in a row, but this is not a track he does great in. I don't know, man. Phoenix is it's going to be kind of wild. I don't think he's going to make it 3 in a row though.
No, I don't think he does. Most of the drivers who have traditionally had success there are kind of at the tail end of their career or retired at this point in time. I would really keep an eye on probably Kyle Larson or
Mm,
Bowman. They've had some success there in the past.
yep.
They're kind of due. Um, it's not a fun track though.
No, it's
And I'll
not.
be honest, like ever since NASCAR has kind of like kept changing things and kept changing things, I really have found it hard to like get into it. Um, but I mean, it could be fun.
They've got it righted enough now that you can follow it again as a cash because again you understand the stage race, you get points for ramming in the stages, and just know this that like most drivers are doing about 60 to 70% throttle for 2/3 of the race, and then at the end their crew chiefs are telling them put it down, and that's where you're seeing all these wild crashes and wrecks, and thank goodness none of these guys are getting seriously hurt. But I don't know that that style of racing is sustainable long term because the cars are like flying wings, the way they've got that undercarriage thing on them now and stuff like that. The little air under them, they're gone. They break into a billion pieces quick. It takes nothing to blow a tire off. And you got guys that have got some serious rivalries. That's the fun part about NASCAR now, though. I would say if you used to watch it and you tuned out because, again, it was too hard to keep up with, and I hear you there. It's fun to get back in now because there's definitely a new level of I hate that guy. That guy hates me. I'm going to put him in the wall. You can hear the guys on the radio say it. That has not changed about NASCAR, even though they're in Phoenix this weekend. It'll be tune in, see what's going on. You want to watch the last 20 laps? That's fine. I don't think you're going to miss a ton. In Vegas next week, though, where Morgan Freeman is the marshal and going to yell, "Start your engines." So we'll. That's I mean, it's everybody's dream, right? To have Morgan Freeman narrate your life, and now the NASCAR drivers get it.
I mean, that's been my dream.
I
And if
mean,
I could
right?
just have him follow me around and narrate what I did, that'd be fabulous.
Oh, I know, right? It would be great. Well, I'm sure CBS or ESPN, whoever will hire him for the tournament, I mean, his voice or some voice alike will wind up on some of that. But we'll get into that in the coming weeks. Alan, good talking sports with you as always, man. Again, folks, thanks for joining us on the Sports Ball Grinder. We're everywhere: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. Again, search for us on the Facebook page, Sports Ball Grinder. You'll get announcements about upcoming stuff. And we'll be back again next week. Right now in the spring, we're kind of on a Tuesday, Friday rotation. We'll make an adjustment to that on Selection Sunday. We'll do an earlier week show, talk about the setup and, catching on the tournaments and all that. And we will pay attention to the women's basketball tournament next time around as well. Even though Caitlin Clark has moved on to the almost unwatchable WNBA now, there's still some good stuff going on in the women's tournament. We'll get into those because the SEC women's tournament was decided by a coin flip this year for the number one seed, which is insane. So we'll get into that next time perhaps. But again, Alan, good talking with you, man. And again, folks, thanks for joining us here on this episode of the Sports Ball Grinder. Sports